You have the governor of Minnesota, who was the vice presidential candidate that recently decided not to seek re-election when a month ago
It's a red herring.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not a red herring. I'm saying there's a
It's
lot.
a red herring.
There's
No, it's a
lot
red
of
herring, Paul.
problems.
the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has expressed anger towards the Trump administration after the shooting. And the FBI will be solely responsible for investigating the killing of Renee Nicole Good, who was the lady that was killed. Now, Tim Walz said that he's pessimistic that there'll be a fair outcome from the federal probe without local law enforcement involvement. Let's now speak with Paul Gazelka, who is a former Republican majority leader in the Minnesota Senate. Paul, welcome to the show.
It's good to be on your show.
Thanks for joining us. And after that, I'll be joined by Scott Lucas, who's Professor of International Politics at University College Dublin. Hello, Scott.
Thank you, Aisha.
Paul, I'll start with you. Just, what's your response to this terrible tragedy?
Well, in some ways, I could see something like that coming. You had more than 10 million illegal immigrants come into America, and the Trump administration has decided that cannot be a path to America. And so ICE is now, apprehending many of those people, and there's definite pushback and a growing pushback, and too many leaders on the Democrat side really encouraging, or at least not discouraging, protesting beyond protesting, meaning if you're using a vehicle to try to push towards a police officer of any kind, and there's been over 60 of those already in the last year, there are going to be situations like this tragic moment. And so it's really, really sad, but it could have been avoided.
I mean, everyone is obviously there's two different kind of narratives on what's happened. I mean, we've all looked at the footage. I'm sure many of us have looked at it many times. I mean, to my eye, it didn't look like she was going towards the police officers. Yeah. It did look like, I understand this particular ICE officer had been involved in something previously. It did look like she was not kind of going for them.
Correct.
Yeah, and I can understand where people could come to different conclusions, and that's why I don't use terms like murder. I trust the system to weed it out. But certainly, if you have less than a quarter of a second to make a decision on whether they're aiming directly towards you, and the police officer was hit while she was leaving, I can understand how it could happen. And a reminder that more than 60 of these have happened in the last year, one of them to this very ICE officer. So I acknowledge it's tragic, and I wish, I support protesting. We have a lot of privilege of free speech in America.
And the civil rights movement, and, America is steeped in protest.
Could you repeat that?
Well, things like the civil rights movement. America has a rich history of protest.
Yeah, and you have tremendous free speech in America. You can say almost anything you want, but there is a line, and it feels like people have been pushing up against that line, and that can create situations that could have been avoided. I mean, this is a tragic situation. I wish it never had happened, but the ICE agents are not going to stop going after illegal immigrants. That's part of Trump's agenda. More than 2 million illegal immigrants have left the United States in the last 12 months. And so, I think the fact is the borders are now truly closed, and the only way to come to America is legally, which I think is a good thing in the long run.
Scott, let's bring you into the conversation. I mean, Trump made it very clear when he was running for president that he was going to be really, really tough on immigration. There will be people who say, well, that's why I voted for him. This is sort of what we wanted.
So I think we need to cut through any political spin and always start with the facts, including some of those misleading statistics regarding immigrants. The facts of the case is that Renee Nicole Good, that was her name, 37, mother of 3, had just dropped her kids off from school. Now, she may or may not have been observing ICE officers that were just making sweeps. And these, of course, are largely masked, unidentified personnel without warrants going through the community. The facts is that she allowed ICE officers to get past her. She was not blocking traffic. There were ICE agents that approached the car, started screaming at her. One of them put his hand on the door of the vehicle and tried to reach inside. At that point, she began to move at a fairly slow pace. She did not move towards the ICE agent, and this is from videos and from multiple witnesses, nor did she hit the agent. That was a story that was created later. You can see it from the frame-by-frame video, including the New York Times examination of it. The officer that had moved around in front of the vehicle, despite the fact that she was moving away with the wheels turned to the right, fired 3 shots at her head, killed her. What happened next is equally important. The ICC agents that were involved left the scene, which prevented the immediate securing of a scene that needed to be investigated. Another ICE agent prevented medical help from being given to Renee Good at that point, including by a doctor. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, rather than establishing a joint investigation and securing the scene, the Homeland Security Director, Kristi Noem, held a press conference in which she smeared and stigmatized Renee Nicole Good as a domestic terrorist, despite the fact that there is absolutely no evidence that she was that. What we need are 3 things, and I'd ask Paul if we could agree on this. One is to stop smearing the name of Renee Nicole Good. 2, a joint investigation between federal, state, and local authorities. And 3, consultation on steps to make sure that this cannot happen again.
Paul?
Well, Scott, there always is more than one way to look at it, and that's why I said right in the beginning, I'll trust people to gather the data and make an informed decision. You never ever hear me speaking in ways I've never been known to be caustic in any way, and I said a terrible situation with the death of Miss Good. But the reason why, and whether it's the right reason or not, that the Trump administration decided to have the FBI handle this is because right now Minnesota is full of many fraudulent situations that government may or may not be linked to other than just oversight. Maybe as much as $9 billion of fraud in housing, in Medicaid payments, in daycare payments. And so they're trying to get to the bottom of that right now. I'm actually meeting with Secretary Vicente.
Paul,
Treasury.
just to interrupt you there, that's
Paul, that's a red herring.
Yeah, I was going to say that's interesting, but that's a kind of sidebar issue. Look, you've been a respected leader in your community in Minnesota. You're obviously been, your tone, and I appreciate, you're saying this is a tragedy. You're not sort of, seeking to smear this woman. But you as a public servant who has, must be very heartbroken by what's happening on your patch. Surely you can see the merit in wanting to, without fear or favour, get to the bottom of what happened so this doesn't happen again. So why can't there be collaboration between the FBI and local forces?
Yeah, that is a choice. I don't know that would have been the choice I would have made. But this is not the only case where the FBI decides that they're going to be the ones that do it. It's good if you have cooperation from your local police. The BCA is what they call it, but that doesn't always happen. I think it speaks quite well to the fact that there is a lot of tension in Minnesota over a lot of situations right now. You have the governor of Minnesota, who was the vice presidential candidate, that recently decided not to seek re-election when a month ago he.
It's a red herring.
Yeah,
it's not a red herring. I'm saying there's a
it's
lot.
A red herring.
It's a red herring. Problems in Minnesota that make this more complicated than the average situation.
Well, look, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. But Paul and Scott, thank you very much for your time